You know what separates those who talk about success from those who actually live it? It's not luck, it's not talent, it's not even opportunity. It's the ability to shift mentally, emotionally, spiritually from limitation to possibility, because every breakthrough in your life begins the moment you challenge what you believe is possible for you. Most people live inside a box built from their fears, doubts, and stories. They've accepted these invisible boundaries as reality. They say, I can't do that, or that's just not who I am, and without realizing it, they chain themselves to mediocrity. See, the mind is powerful, but it's also obedient. It will serve whatever master you give it. If you feed it limitations, it will create excuses. If you feed it possibilities, it will find a way. That's the truth most people miss. The moment you say, I can't, your brain shuts off its creative power. But when you say, how can I, your brain goes to work. That one word shift from can't to how transforms your entire psychology. Because when you live from possibility, you stop waiting for life to happen and start making life happen. There was a time I believed success was for other people, the ones with the resources, the connections, the education. But I realized something powerful. Nothing outside of you can stop you unless you believe it can. The walls around you are made of thoughts. And the moment you challenge those thoughts, the walls crumble. I began asking a different question. What if it's possible? Not what if I fail? Not what if it's too hard? But what if I can make it happen? That question opened doors I didn't even know existed. The shift starts with awareness. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Every time you catch yourself saying, I'm not enough, or I'll never get there, stop and ask, who said that? Where did that voice come from? Because it's not truth, it's conditioning. Maybe it's from parents who were doing their best but limited by their own fears. Maybe it's from society telling you to play small, stay safe, fit in. But here's the reality, your potential doesn't care about your past. Your mind doesn't care where you came from. It only responds to what you tell it over and over again. When you begin to speak to yourself differently, you begin to live differently. You can't build a limitless life with limited language. So instead of saying, I can't afford this, start saying, how can I make it happen? Instead of saying, I don't have the time, ask, how can I create the time? Those questions flip the switch in your brain. They activate creativity, resourcefulness, and power. Because the truth is, your life expands in direct proportion to your mindset. If you think small, you act small. If you think bold, you act bold. The shift from limitation to possibility is not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about refusing to let fear dictate your future. Fear is always there. It whispers in your ear. It paints pictures of failure. It tries to convince you to stay where it's safe. But if you listen closely, you'll realize fear is just a signal that something bigger is calling you. Every great dream demands a confrontation with fear. You either feed the fear or you feed your faith. You can't do both. You must train your brain to see opportunity where others see obstacles. When most people hit a wall, they stop. When you hit a wall, you did climb or break through it. That's what the shift looks like. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? You stop focusing on what's missing and start focusing on what's possible. You stop being a prisoner of circumstance and become the creator of destiny. I remember countless times I was told, no, you can't, it won't work. But I refuse to live under the ceiling of other people's fears. Because if you let someone else define your limits, you'll spend your life living inside their vision, not yours. You've got to decide that your life is your responsibility. No one's coming to rescue you. The shift from limitation to possibility begins the day you stop waiting for permission to become who you were meant to be. That's why mindset isn't just theory, it's a muscle. You condition it through repetition, through awareness, through discipline. Every morning you wake up, you have two choices: feed your limitations or feed your potential. And whichever one you feed will grow. When I wake up, I don't wait for motivation. I prime my mind. I remind myself of what's possible. I anchor myself to gratitude, to vision, to purpose. Because the world doesn't respond to how you feel, it responds to how you show up. Think about everything that exists today. Every invention, every breakthrough, every success story started as an idea in someone's mind. It started as a possibility. The airplane, the light bulb, the smartphone, they were all impossible until someone decided they weren't. That's the power of shifting from limitation to possibility. You stop seeing the world as it is and start seeing it as it could be. You start creating instead of conforming. But here's the secret. Possibility thinking isn't about ignoring reality. It's about expanding. It's about saying, yes, this is hard. Yes, I've failed. Yes, I'm scared, but there's still a way. That's the mindset of growth. That's the mindset of a champion. Because the difference between people who win and those who don't isn't that they never fail. It's that they never let failure define what's possible for them. The moment you accept limitation, you hand over your power. The moment you question it, you take it back. Every great transformation starts with a simple thought. Maybe there's more for me. And when that thought becomes a belief, and that belief becomes action, your whole life begins to change. You're not broken. You're not stuck. You're not behind. You're simply operating from an old mindset that no longer serves who you're becoming. The shift from limitation to possibility is an awakening, a realization that life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Every challenge, every setback, every disappointment, it's shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you for what's next. And when you finally embrace that truth, when you stop running from fear and start running toward purpose, something incredible happens. You start to see possibilities everywhere. You start to believe again. You start to act with certainty, speak with conviction, live with fire. Because deep down, there is no limit except the one you accept. So if you're ready to rise, if you're ready to become everything you were designed to be, make the decision right now to shift. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it. Don't wait for permission. Take it. Because the day you choose to move from limitation to possibility is the day your real life begins. Emotion is the force that drives every action you take. It's not logic that moves you, it's emotion. People think they make decisions intellectually, but that's not true. Every decision is born from an emotional state. The way you feel in a moment determines the choices you make, the words you speak, and the energy you bring into everything you do. If you feel powerful, you act powerfully. If you feel defeated, you play small. That's why mastering your emotional state is the foundation of transformation. Because no matter how much knowledge or strategy you have, if your emotional state is weak, you'll never use what you know. Think about it. How many times have you known exactly what to do, but didn't do it? You knew you needed to make that call, start that project, have that conversation, but you didn't. Not because you didn't know how, because you didn't feel like it. You were in the wrong state. Maybe you were tired, discouraged, frustrated, or afraid, and in that state, even simple actions feel impossible. But when you shift your emotional state, when you move from fear to courage, from doubt to determination, everything changes. You don't need motivation anymore. You become motivation. Most people wait for their emotions to change before they take action. They say, when I feel confident, I'll start. When I'm motivated, I'll go for it. But that's backward. Emotion doesn't come from waiting. It comes from motion. The fastest way to change how you feel is to change what you do. You can't think your way into a new emotion. You move your way into it. You change your breathing, your posture, your focus, your words. You create the state that will move you forward. Every emotion has a physiology. When you're depressed, your shoulders drop, your breathing slows, your voice weakens. When you're confident, your chest opens, breathing deepens, your energy rises. Your body tells your brain what to feel. So if you want to master your emotions, start by mastering your body. Stand tall. Breathe deeply. Move with purpose. You'd be amazed how quickly your mind follows your body's lead. See, emotion is a habit. Some people live in anger, others in fear, others in joy or gratitude. It's not because life gave them more or less. It's because they conditioned themselves to live in that state. You can train your body and mind to return to a powerful state the same way you train a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets. You don't need to fake positivity. You just need to condition your nervous system to associate energy, confidence, and drive with action. When you wake up in the morning, your first emotion sets the tone for your day. Most people reach for their phones and start reacting to messages, news, or social media. They let the world decide how they feel. But if you take a few minutes to prime your emotions, to focus on gratitude, strength, and vision, you take control of your state. You're no longer reacting, you're leading. You walk into the day with intention, not hesitation. When you master your state, you become unshakable. Challenges still come, but they don't control you. Stress still shows up, but you don't drown in it. You learn to use your emotions instead of being used by them. You learn to feel fear and still move forward. Because power isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to direct it. The energy that once held you back becomes the same energy that propels you forward. You've got to understand that emotion is energy in motion. Whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on what's missing, you feel scarcity. If you focus on what's possible, you feel inspired. The mind and body are connected, and focus is the steering wheel. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you feed. And the moment you shift your focus, your emotion follows. If you've ever seen someone completely transform their life, you might think it took years of change. But real change happens in a moment, the moment they decide to change their emotional state. It's that instant when they say, I've had enough. That decision doesn't come from the head, it comes from the heart, from a deep emotional shift that says, I will no longer live this way. When that happens, everything else aligns. When you learn to master your emotional state, your past stops defining you. You stop reliving old pain. You stop being triggered by the same patterns, because emotion is the anchor of memory. If you break the emotional pattern, you break the chain of the past. You can look at the same event that used to hurt you and see it with strength and gratitude instead of pain. That's emotional mastery. Most people think they need a perfect environment to feel good. They say, I'd be happy if I had more money, or I'd be confident if people respected me. But true power is when you can feel joy, confidence, and certainty regardless of circumstance. When you can choose your state independent of the world around you, that's freedom. Because when your inner world is solid, the outer world can't shake you. You might be surrounded by chaos, but inside, you're calm, You might face rejection, but inside you're unbreakable. You might have setbacks, but inside you're still certain that it's all part of the process. That's what separates those who create extraordinary lives from those who just survive them. They've learned to command their emotions, not be commanded by them. If you look at high achievers, they don't have fewer problems. They just manage their state differently. They approach problems from a peak state. Because when you're in a high energy state, what looked like a wall now looks like a challenge you can conquer. When you're in a low state, everything feels impossible. So it's not the problem that needs to change. It's the state you bring to it. You can build rituals that put you in that peak state every day. Music that fires you up, movement that charges your body, affirmations that center your mind. It's not just motivation, it's conditioning. You're teaching your brain and body that no matter what happens, you can access power, confidence, and clarity on demand. Once you realize you have that control, you'll never go back to being at the mercy of your emotions again. And remember, emotion fuels motion. If you want to create massive results, you've got to generate massive emotion. Energy is contagious. Your energy affects everyone around you. When you walk into a room with certainty, people feel it. When you lead with passion, others rise with you. That's the power of mastering your emotional state. You become a force of influence, not because of what you say, but because of who you are when you say it. So stop waiting for life to give you the perfect conditions. Create the emotion that will drive you, because the truth is you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You can't control the world, but you can control your state. And the moment you do that, you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the master of your destiny. Belief is the blueprint of your reality. Everything you experience, everything you create, everything you achieve, it all starts with what you believe is possible for you. If your beliefs are small, your life will shrink to fit them. If your beliefs are expansive, your life will rise to meet them. That's the truth most people never understand. They think life happens to them, when in reality, life is a reflection of the thoughts and beliefs they've rehearsed for years. You are living today what you decided to believe yesterday, and if you want a different tomorrow, you have to reprogram what you believe today. Your beliefs are not facts. They are patterns of thought you've repeated so many times that your mind accepted them as truth. When you were a child, you absorbed beliefs from parents, teachers, society, beliefs about money, success, love, worth. Maybe you heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, or people like us never make it big, or don't aim too high or you'll get disappointed. Those phrases seemed harmless at the time, but they planted seeds that grew into invisible walls around your potential. And now, as an adult, you may find yourself living inside those walls without even realizing it. But here's the good news. You can rewrite the script. You can reprogram your mind, because your brain is not fixed. It's flexible. It learns through repetition and emotion. Just as old beliefs were built through years of repetition, new ones can be built the same way. You can teach your brain to believe in possibility, strength, and abundance, even if your past didn't. It's like rewiring a circuit. At first, it feels strange, uncomfortable, even fake. But the more you do it, the stronger the new connection becomes, until it becomes your new normal. The key is repetition with vision. You can't just think a new thought once and expect transformation. You have to feel it, see it, live it before it's real. The mind doesn't respond to words, it responds to emotion. When you visualize something with passion and clarity, your brain begins to believe it's already happening. That's why athletes visualize winning before they compete. That's why top performers rehearse success in their minds long before they experience it in reality. They are training their nervous system to expect victory. If you keep telling yourself, I'm not enough, your brain will find evidence to prove it. It will filter reality to match your belief. But if you start saying, I am capable, I am growing, I am unstoppable, your brain will search for evidence to support that too. It's not magic, it's biology. The brain has a system called the reticular activating system. It filters information based on what you focus on. Change your focus, and your brain changes what it shows you. That's how belief reprogramming works. You give your mind a new target, and it begins to align your perception, emotion, and behavior toward that target. But it doesn't happen overnight. Old beliefs will fight back. They'll whisper, this isn't real, or who are you to think like that? That's your old identity trying to survive. The human mind craves familiarity, even if that familiarity is pain, because comfort feels safe, but nothing grows in comfort. So when those old thoughts surface, don't resist them, replace them. Every time the old voice says, you can't, respond with, watch me. Every time it says, you're not ready, say, I was born for this. Every replacement weakens the old pattern and strengthens the new one. Reprogramming your beliefs is about consistency. You can't take a single step and expect the world to shift. You have to condition your mind daily. Affirmations, visualization, journaling, meditation, gratitude, these are not random practices. They are tools for wiring your mind for success. Each one sends a message to your subconscious that says, this is who I am now. And when your subconscious accepts that message, your behavior follows naturally. Think of your beliefs like the operating system of a computer. You can install all the new apps and strategies you want, but if the operating system is outdated, nothing will run properly. That's why people attend seminars, read books, learn techniques, but still feel stuck. They're trying to upgrade their life without upgrading their beliefs. The foundation hasn't changed. Once you rewrite the foundation, the structure can finally expand. You've got to connect your new beliefs with powerful emotion. If you just say, I'm confident, while feeling uncertain, your brain won't buy it. But if you stand tall, breathe deeply, move your body with energy, and declare it with conviction, your physiology starts to align with that belief. The emotion gives it power. Over time, the mind begins to associate that energy with the new identity you're creating. You're not faking it, you're conditioning it. The reason most people never change their beliefs is because they keep waiting for proof. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. But that's backwards. You'll see it when you believe it. Faith comes before evidence. You must believe before you have the results. Every great achievement in history was born from belief before reality. The Wright brothers believed humans could fly when the world laughed. Edison believed light could come from a filament when everyone else doubted. Every visionary, every innovator, every leader believed first, then created. That's how the mind works. When you believe something with absolute certainty, you stop negotiating with your limitations. You stop asking F and start asking how. You no longer see obstacles as roadblocks, but as feedback guiding you toward mastery. That's the power of reprogramming your beliefs. You no longer live by default, you live by design. And remember, belief is not about lying to yourself. It's about aligning with your potential. It's about seeing yourself not as who you've been, but as who you're becoming. Because the person you are now is just the result of old patterns. The person you're becoming is waiting for you to choose a new story. You must decide what you want to believe about your life. Do you believe you're limited by circumstance or guided by purpose? Do you believe success is for others or for you? Do you believe you're a victim of your past or the creator of your future? The answers to those questions will shape everything you experience, because your mind will always find a way to make your beliefs true. When you reprogram your mind with empowering beliefs, your energy changes. You start attracting opportunities that match your vibration. You start noticing doors that were always there but invisible to your old perception. You start acting with confidence even in uncertainty, because deep down you know the truth. You're not broken, you're not behind, and you're not limited. You've simply been programmed to believe a smaller story. So it's time to write a new one. A story of possibility, courage, and purpose. A story that reflects the truth of who you really are, not the limitations you were taught to accept. Because once you reprogram your beliefs through repetition and vision, you unlock a version of yourself that doesn't ask for permission to rise, it simply does. Every human being is driven by two invisible forces, pain and pleasure. These two emotions shape every decision you make, every habit you keep, and every action you take. The secret to lasting change isn't about willpower or motivation, it's about learning how to use pain and pleasure as leverage. Most people are controlled by them, but the ones who create extraordinary results are the ones who learn to control them. Because until you master these two forces, you'll always be at their mercy. Think about it. Everything you do to either avoid pain or gain pleasure. If you don't work out, it's because your brain associates pain with the effort and pleasure with staying comfortable. If you procrastinate, it's because taking action feels painful while delay feels safe, even if only for a moment. But when you flip that association, when you link massive pain to staying the same and massive pleasure to growing, you can transform any behavior in an instant. The problem is most people are wired backwards. They attach pleasure to habits that destroy them and pain to habits that would save them. They feel pleasure in distraction, comfort, laziness, or instant gratification, and pain and discipline, change and consistency. But here's the truth, growth will always be uncomfortable. And if you keep running from discomfort, you'll keep running from the life you were meant to live. Change begins when you decide that the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. You've got to understand that pain isn't your enemy. It's your greatest teacher. Pain shows up to get your attention. It says something needs to shift. Most people try to numb it, hide it, or escape it, but that only multiplies it. The only way to be free from pain is to face it. When you face pain with courage and ask, what is this trying to teach me? You reclaim your power. You stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it as guidance. I remember times when everything felt like it was falling apart, financially, emotionally, mentally. It was pain that pushed me to grow. It was pain that made me hungry enough to demand more from myself. Without that pain, I never would have evolved. Pain woke me up to the reality that nothing changes until I do. That's the gift hidden in every hardship, the opportunity to rise higher than your excuses. When you learn to use pain as leverage, you stop avoiding it and start using it. You look at your life and say, if I don't change now, what will this cost me a year from now? 5 years, 10 years. You imagine the pain of regret, the pain of lost potential, the pain of looking back knowing you could have been more. That pain becomes the fuel that drives you to act, because nothing is more powerful than the pain of regret. It's the pain that never goes away. But here's the beautiful part. You can use pleasure the same way. Just as pain can push you, pleasure can pull you. You can create a vivid emotional vision of the pleasure you'll feel when you succeed, when you grow, when you overcome, when you fulfill your purpose. You imagine the freedom, the pride, the joy of becoming who you were meant to be. That vision pulls you through every challenge because the brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It reacts to emotion. So when you feel the pleasure of your future success in the present moment, your mind begins to align with it. The key is emotional intensity. You can't just intellectually say, I want to change. You have to feel it. You have to link massive, unbearable pain to the behaviors holding you back and overwhelming pleasure to the actions that will move you forward. When the emotional intensity is strong enough, change becomes automatic. You don't need discipline, you need alignment. Look at anyone who's made a radical transformation in their life, someone who lost the weight, broke the addiction, left the toxic relationship, started the business. They all reached a moment where pain became unbearable. They said, enough is enough. In that moment, their brain rewired. They linked so much pain to the old behavior that continuing it was no longer an option. That's the power of leverage. It's not that they suddenly found motivation. It's that the balance of pain and pleasure shifted. You can use this same principle in every area of your life. Want to stop procrastinating? Link massive pain to delay. Feel the frustration, the missed opportunities, the loss of confidence it brings. Then link massive pleasure to taking action. See the relief, the progress, the pride that comes with moving forward. Want to become healthier? Link pain to the sluggishness, the low energy, the shame of inaction. Link pleasure to strength, vitality, and self-respect. Your mind will follow whatever emotion you attach the most meaning to. Here's the truth: people don't change because they should. They change because they must. And must only happens when the emotional leverage becomes strong enough. You've got to raise your standards emotionally. You've got to say, I will no longer tolerate this level of pain. I will no longer accept this version of myself. When you raise the emotional standard, your behavior automatically rises to meet it. Pain and pleasure are not random. They are signals. Pain tells you something is misaligned. Pleasure tells you you're in harmony with your purpose. But you have to take ownership of how you use them. If you link pleasure to avoidance, you'll stay stuck. If you link pleasure to growth, you'll soar. The difference is choice. You can even use this principle to overcome fear. Fear is just the anticipation of pain. Most people fear failure because they link pain to it, embarrassment, rejection, loss. But if you rewire your associations and link pain to an action instead, everything changes. You stop fearing failure and start fearing regret. You stop avoiding mistakes and start avoiding stagnation. That shift in emotional leverage can transform fear into fuel. When you take control of pain and pleasure, you take control of your destiny, because every decision from that point forward becomes intentional. You no longer act from impulse, you act from awareness. You no longer chase comfort, you chase growth. You no longer avoid pain, you use it to propel yourself to new levels of strength and clarity. There's an old saying that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. It's true. The discipline of growth might sting for a moment, but the pride that follows lasts a lifetime. The comfort of avoidance might feel good now, but the pain that follows lasts forever. The choice is always yours. You can let pain control you, or you can use it as the driving force that shapes your destiny. So stop running from pain. Use it. Let it refine you, not define you. Let it push you toward the pleasure of purpose, freedom, and fulfillment. Because the moment you master pain and pleasure, you master the very forces that control human behavior. And when you do that, there's nothing left in this world that can hold you back. Identity is the foundation of everything you do. It's the invisible force that shapes your behavior, your choices, and your destiny. You can change your habits for a while. You can shift your goals. You can even push through with willpower. But if your identity doesn't evolve, you'll always snap back to where you started, because you can never consistently act in a way that's inconsistent with who you believe you are. Lasting success isn't about changing what you do. It's about changing who you believe yourself to be. Every result in your life is a reflection of your identity. If you see yourself as someone who's always struggling, you'll find ways to struggle. If you see yourself as someone who's disciplined and unstoppable, you'll act accordingly. You might say you want to get fit, start a business, or change your life. But if deep down you believe, I'm lazy, I'm unlucky, or I'm not that type of person, your subconscious mind will sabotage every attempt to rise. You'll take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because your identity acts like a thermostat. It pulls you back to the temperature you've been conditioned to live at. That's why real transformation begins when you decide to condition a new identity. When you stop saying, I'm trying to be successful, and start saying, I am successful. When you stop saying, I'm hoping to change, and start saying, this is who I am now. The moment you declare a new identity, your brain begins to search for ways to align your actions with it. You start building habits that match that version of you, and every action reinforces the belief until it becomes automatic. Most people build their identity around their past. They define themselves by what they've done, what they've failed at, or what people have said about them. But the past is not your identity, it's your training ground. Your identity is created in the present moment through the choices you make right now. You can decide today to become the kind of person who takes massive action, who stays consistent, who lives with purpose. That decision doesn't require perfection, it requires commitment. Because when you commit to a new identity, your behavior will eventually catch up. Changing your identity starts with language. The words you use about yourself shape the way you think, feel, and act. If you keep saying, "I'm always tired," "I'm terrible with money," or "I can never focus," your mind will do everything it can to keep those statements true. But if you start speaking life into your future, saying, "I'm full of energy, I'm financially intelligent, I'm laser focused and unstoppable," your subconscious begins to accept it. The words you repeat become the beliefs you live by. You have to condition your identity daily. You can't just declare a new belief once and expect it to stick. You must reaffirm it through repetition, through action, through emotion. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you strengthen your identity. When you say, "I'm disciplined," and then you show up when it's inconvenient, your brain says, "That's who we are now." When you say, "I'm committed," and you finish what you start, your brain locks it in as truth. Over time, the new identity becomes your default setting. But here's the thing, your environment must support your new identity. You can't plant a seed in toxic soil and expect it to thrive. If you keep surrounding yourself with people who reinforce your old identity, you'll be pulled back every time. You need to immerse yourself in an environment that reflects your future, not your past. People who challenge you to grow, places that elevate your energy, habits that reinforce your vision. You become like the people you spend the most time with, so choose wisely. You must also let go of the identity that's tied to your pain. Some people have learned to find significance in their struggle. They identify with being the one who suffered, the one who overcame, the one who always fights alone. That identity might have protected you once, but it can also imprison you. Because as long as you define yourself by your wounds, you'll never step fully into your power. You have to thank the old version of you for surviving and then release it. You don't owe your past self loyalty, you owe your future self growth. When you condition a new identity, you begin to see challenges differently. You no longer say, "Why is this happening to me?" You say, "This is shaping me into who I'm becoming." Because when your identity is solid, external events can't shake you. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You realize that discipline isn't something you force, it's something you are. Confidence isn't something you chase, it's something you embody. Success isn't something you get, it's something you express from who you've become. Identity is built through decisions, not conditions. You don't wait until you have proof to call yourself powerful. You decide you are, and then your actions create the proof. The mind follows identity. When you decide who you are and commit to it completely, your habits, your focus, your energy, and your environment start aligning automatically. The problem is, most people make their identity conditional. They say, "I'll see myself as confident when I lose the weight," or "I'll see myself as successful when I make the money." But that's backward. You have to embody the identity first. The results will follow. It's like planting a seed. You don't wait for it to grow before you believe it's a tree. You nurture it, water it, protect it, because you already believe in what it will become. That's how you must treat your identity. You may not see the results yet, but if you keep feeding your mind the right thoughts, taking aligned actions, and surrounding yourself with the right energy, your new identity will grow roots so deep that nothing can shake it. And understand this, your identity is not one decision, it's a daily practice. Every day you wake up, you're casting votes for the person you want to become. Every choice is a ballot for your future. When you hit snooze, you're voting for the old you. When you get up and take action, you're voting for the new you. When you let fear make your choices, you're reinforcing the old pattern. When you act with courage, you're reinforcing the new one. Change happens in those small moments when you decide to align your behavior with your future instead of your past. And when your identity becomes unshakable, your life becomes unstoppable. Because you no longer need motivation, you have embodiment. You no longer need to convince yourself, you just act because it's who you are now. That's what true transformation feels like. It's not effort, it's expression. You're no longer fighting against the old, you're flowing with the new. When you reach that point, everything you do starts to feel natural. Success doesn't feel like a struggle. Discipline doesn't feel like punishment. Growth doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like alignment, because you've finally become the kind of person who doesn't chase goals. You attract them through identity. So decide right now who you are, not who you were, not who others said you were, who you choose to be. Condition that identity every single day until it becomes part of your being. Because when you condition your identity for unstoppable growth, you don't just change your results, you change your destiny.